Have you ever seen a character in a show die and think to yourself, man, this sucks? In this video, I want to look at some of the things that make a character's death well written. The short answer is impact, but there's a lot more to it. While death is part of just about every anime or story in general for that matter, the most interesting thing is that it can be executed in so many different ways. When properly placed in a story, a death can be a major turning point in the direction or even tone of the story. I'm going to look at 4 specific examples of deaths in anime and break down some of the ways it can be used both correctly and incorrectly in a story. Keep in mind, I'm no writing professor, I'm just a guy. So if I say a death was poorly done and you don't agree with me, don't kill me. In my opinion, a well-written death should be impactful to not only other characters, but the world as a whole. The effects of the death should be felt for a long period of time, if ever forgotten at all. For starters though, one of the biggest factors that determines the death impact is context. This can mean so many different things, but for the sake of this video, I want to discuss context in terms of a character's age. Age can change how we view death because depending on whether it's a child that dies or an adult, it can hit hard for different reasons. Take Tanjiro from Demon Slayer for example. In episode 1, Tanjiro is shown to be living a peaceful life with his family. He lives with his mother and 4 younger siblings. Tanjiro goes to the local village to make some extra money selling charcoal, but has to spend the night at a local man's house who warns him of flesh-eating demons. Tanjiro heads back the next morning but smells blood on his way home. He arrives to see the most horrific sight he's ever seen in his life. He sees his entire family was killed except for his sister Nezuko. Of course this scene is sad because everyone dies, but I want to focus specifically on his younger siblings in this example. The difference between his mother and younger siblings is that kids are often seen as vulnerable and needing to be protected. Because of this, their deaths generally tend to be mourned more than adults. Especially with Tanjiro being the assumed man of the house as the oldest sibling, the protection of the youngest is a responsibility that falls on him. It's clear that being protective is one of Tanjiro's main traits, and it's evident by how he still decided to protect Nezuko even after she turned into a demon. Kids dying also tend to be sadder due to the fact that they miss out on so much of their life. I was reading the manga Vagabond while writing this video, and a quote stood out to me that related so much to this. Just for a little background context, the main character of the manga is Takizo, and he's a, vagabond, and he has no problem with killing anyone who challenges him. When Takizo is captured, he asks to just be killed and die an honorable death as a warrior. The monk who captures him gives him a profound speech in an attempt to put his life in perspective by telling him, so you want to die honorably, a warrior's death. You're being selfish. Each and every person you killed has his own life. Whether that life was blessed or not, everyone is born into this world. They grow up, some people have families, some are alone in this world. Some have young children, some are engaged, some have pets. Some people have high hopes and great dreams. Others have no ambition at all. You ended everything for them, Takizo. You killed them. This goes back to my point that the death of younger characters is super sad because they don't get a chance to experience all of life. All of their dreams and ambitions are cut far too early. On the other hand, when an older character dies, while of course it's still sad, it's sad for different reasons. Let's look at Yuji's granddad for example. The reason the death of an older character hits hard is because they usually have lived their life and got a chance to experience so many different things. Because of this, they usually leave someone with a message or some type of information. Yuji's grandfather left him with the message to help others no matter what, and to make sure when it's his time to go, he's surrounded by people who love him. These words completely set the groundwork for Yuji's outlook and path in life. His grandfather's words helped him establish how he moved forward in life. However, a great death scene goes just one step further.
No matter who you are, you do not truly know what kind of man you've become until you reach the very end. One realizes one's true nature at the moment of death. Don't you think that's what death is about?
Itachi's death in Naruto is a great example of a death that not only establishes how Sasuke moves forward in life, but also completely rearranges his former beliefs. Before Itachi's death, Sasuke lived a life reserved and full of hatred, motivated by selfish revenge. Everything Sasuke did was to become stronger for a chance at one day killing Itachi and avenging his clan. He was so hard set on this goal, he was willing to do whatever it took, from severing the few bonds he had built to teaming up with the ninja version of the Diddler. This ambition would be his entire motivating force, which made him a very one-dimensional character, that is, until the death of Itachi. After the death of Itachi, it's not a stretch to say Sasuke becomes the most complex character in all of Naruto. He thought Itachi's death was what would bring him peace and fulfillment. However, after defeating Itachi and seeing his smile along with Obito's explanation of Itachi's life, Sasuke was left confused. Obito explained that Itachi, unknown to Sasuke, was actually guiding him to be stronger through fostering his hatred for him. This reveal gives context to one of Itachi's quotes given during his final fight with Sasuke.
Each of us lives dependent and bound by our individual knowledge and our awareness. All that is what we call reality. However, both knowledge and awareness are equivocal. One's reality might be another's illusion. We all live inside our own fantasies.
This is probably my favorite quote in all of Naruto for the simple fact that it's almost definitely a nod to Plato's Allegory of the Cave. If you don't know or have never heard of Plato's Allegory of the Cave, it's a metaphor for levels of thinking. It's insanely complex and I could talk about it for hours, but I'll give a short summary for context. Basically, Plato describes prisoners who have lived their entire lives chained in a cave facing a black wall. They see shadows projecting on this wall from objects passing in front of a fire behind them. To these prisoners, these shadows are reality. They give them names and consider them real because that's all they know. Plato goes on to explain how philosophers strive to leave the cave and uncover true reality. However, for the context of this video, only the final part is relevant. This is what Itachi is trying to tell Sasuke subtly, that the revenge and hatred he lived in for so long was just due to a lack of understanding of the true reality and nature of things around him. Coming to understand the politics around Itachi's death initially radicalized Sasuke and sent him into a destructive mode of wanting to destroy the Leaf Village in the name of vengeance. While Sasuke may have gone down to his lowest point mentally in the entire series, as Sasuke fans we were up. Some of his best moments come from this era. His crazy face, his crazy laugh, and how could you forget his 5 Kage Summon entrance?
He's here. Above us.
Sasuke's mentally unstable era would come to an end though when he finally got a chance to talk to Itachi in Edo Tensei form. After hearing Itachi's own words that he deliberately chose to protect the village at the cost of his clan, Sasuke goes to learn why. He speaks to the past Hokages about the Leaf Village's history and learns it was supposed to be a framework that led to peace, which Itachi tried to hold on to. Sasuke once again changes his outlook moving forward, and instead of wanting the destruction of the Leaf, he wants to completely reshape the entire ninja world. In Itachi's death, Sasuke found a purpose to strive and live for. This is why his death is so impactful in the grand scheme of things. A great death should change a character's view of the world by teaching them something and cause them to reevaluate their previous belief system. While Itachi's death is one of my favorite written deaths in anime, there's another way a death can be just as impactful.
Just as there are people out there who inherited Roger's will, soon enough, someone will carry on in Ace's name as well. You may try to destroy their spirit, but you will never extinguish their flame. So it has been, and so it shall continue to be from now till the very end of time. And one day in the future, when we're all dead and gone, someone will arise carrying generations upon generations of our history on his shoulders, and he'll throw down the gauntlet in front of the entire world.
More than influencing the way a single character moves forward after their death, a character's death can influence the whole world as a whole. Whitebeard is the greatest example of this. For context, in One Piece, there's 4 pirates known as Yonko, or emperors, who reside in their own territory of the sea. These are the 4 most notable and powerful captains in the entire world. At the time of Whitebeard's death, the other 3 Yonko were Red Hair Shanks, Big Mom, and Kaido. Each Yonko has influence and control over dozens of other crews, which they can call upon if a necessary situation arises. This is exactly what happens during the Summit War when Ace, who's a commander of the Whitebeard pirates, is captured by the Marines. When Ace is set to be publicly executed by the Marines, Whitebeard and his allies wage war against the entire Marine force, leading to one of the greatest battles in all of Shonen. The superpowers of the entire world are all colliding, yet the climax of the battle isn't until Whitebeard steps into the fight. fight. Aokiji had frozen the pirate ships earlier in the battles to stop any attempts at escape from the pirates. Along with this, Akainu purposely spread misinformation to Whitebeard's allies that he sold them out for Ace's freedom. This causes Squard, one of Whitebeard's most loyal allies, to stab him before finding out the Marines lied about everything. Whitebeard, being the leader that he is, still chose to forgive him and use his Earthquake Devil Fruit to break the ice, making any pirates who wanted to leave free to do so. Seeing this, however, just reassured everyone who followed him to stay and fight alongside him. Whitebeard then proceeds to do one of the coldest things I've ever seen in any anime and causes an earthquake so huge it leaves the entire island and sea around the area tilted. After finally freeing Ace, the pirates attempt to escape, but hearing Akainu disrespect Whitebeard makes Ace turn around. Despite everyone telling Ace to ignore it and keep moving, he couldn't let the man he called his father, the man who just waged war against the entire Marines, be disrespected. Sadly, this decision got Ace turned into a donut. This causes Whitebeard to go into a rage attacking Akainu. However, shortly after this, Blackbeard arrives. Due to old age and having tanked a ton of attacks previously, Whitebeard was already heavily weakened. After a short one-on-one fight, Whitebeard was outnumbered by Blackbeard's entire crew at once. His death marked the end of his reign as the strongest man in the world. Just before dying, however, Whitebeard's final words are,
"The One Piece! The One Piece is real!"
See, the whole reason the Marines were trying to kill Ace was to end the Pirate Age by ending the Pirate King's bloodline. With this one sentence before his death, Whitebeard reignited an entirely new Pirate Age. According to Ace, if there was a name for this era, it would be the era of Whitebeard. Whitebeard's death impacted more than just one person, it impacted the story and world of One Piece as a whole. His death shook the entire balance of the world and left the whole territory of the sea up for grabs. Not only this, but his revelation of the One Piece inspired a new generation of pirates to come forward. While Whitebeard's death was admirable, this next death I want to talk about is what I consider a hero's death.
Everything that you thought had meaning, every hope, dream, or moment of happiness, none of it matters as you lie bleeding out on the battlefield. None of it changes what a speeding rock does to a body. We all die. But does that mean our lives are meaningless? Does that mean that there was no point in our being born? Would you say that of our slain comrades? What about their lives? Were they meaningless? They were not! Their memory serves as an example to us all! The courageous fallen, the anguished fallen. Their lives have meaning because we, the living, refuse to forget them! And as we ride to certain death, we trust our successors to do the same for us! Because my soldiers do not buckle or yield when faced with the cruelty of this world! My soldiers push forward! My soldiers scream out! My soldiers rage!
There's a certain type of death in anime I consider the hero's death. Both Itachi and Whitebeard's deaths have elements of this, but Erwin's death is the perfect example of this. I call it the hero's death because in their death they save someone else, but more than just that, they die for a purpose or cause greater than just themselves. Both Itachi and Whitebeard live their lives impacting and helping others, but ultimately die for selfish reasons. Itachi used Sasuke as a form of judgment for his actions of killing the Uchiha, and Whitebeard died trying to save one of his sons. Erwin led a charge to the death in an operation to take down the Beast Titan for the greater good of humanity. When things looked like they were at their worst and everyone lost their morale, Erwin was able to change that. Even with everyone straight up asking things like if they know they're gonna die, why would they obey his commands, he had an answer. He tells the doubters that their death is only meaningless if they consider all their previous comrades' deaths meaningless as well. His ability to charge everyone up around him to make the greatest sacrifice for the sake of humanity is why this is a hero's death. Not only to die for a cause greater than yourself, but to lead an army of soldiers to do the exact same thing is admirable to say the least. Erwin's sacrifice didn't just end his life, he also sacrificed his own dream. As a child, Erwin was always the type of person to not just accept facts at face value, he questioned things regarding the history of humanity and why it was quote unquote forgotten. His father would share his own theories on these topics, and not understanding the severity of the general public hearing these ideas, Erwin would go around talking to the other kids about them. This resulted in his his father's accidental death, which convinced Erwin his father's theories were correct. Erwin grew to come to his own additional conclusions that the government doesn't care about the people and would do whatever is necessary to keep power. He joined the Scouts in hopes of exposing this truth, but he realized as time went on, he talked about it less and less. Erwin realized while the other Scouts were fighting for humanity's sake, he was fighting for his own selfish reasons. When he gained a position of power, he used his influence to inspire others to fight for the greater good of humanity rather than pushing his own selfish agenda. Erwin chose to die a hero's death on the front line in the most selfless and uplifting way possible for the sake of humanity as a whole. The hero's death is all about sacrifice, not just the sacrifice of your own body, but the sacrifice of your own selfish ideals, goals, ambition in the pursuit of something greater than yourself. Now, when talking about death in anime, it's impossible to not bring up resurrection. When done wrong, it can completely take away the emotional impact of a character's death, and when done correctly, it can lead to a very powerful character moment. Gaara's resurrection is an example of one done the right way. For a resurrection to hit, it has to have three components: a sacrifice, a struggle, and a lasting impact has to be made on the character or the world. As much as I love Dragon Ball, I can't ignore the fact that Dragon Balls are kind of Mickey. They take away a lot of the stakes in the show specifically because of the lack of sacrifice needed to use them. You can just use the Dragon Radar, gather the magic balls, and boom, there's a character that's coming back to life. Gaara's resurrection required a life for a life. In order for it to happen, Lady Chiyo had to give her own life to complete the jutsu to bring him back. This adds to the impact because a character's revival isn't free. There's still a loss that takes place. Along with this, Naruto and others struggled to even be able to have the opportunity for a resurrection. They had to defeat 2 Akatsuki members to be able to bring Gaara's body back home. It's not like they just found his body somewhere after Deidara and Sorcery were finished with it. Making the resurrection requires some type of struggle as to the suspense of whether it'll happen or not. Just knowing for a fact that a resurrection will take place takes away from the impact of the moment when it happens. The final thing that can solidify a well-done resurrection is a lasting impact on a character or the world. Similar to how Itachi's death impacted Sasuke and Whitebeard's impacted the world, something similar should happen regardless of the resurrection occurring. In this example, Gaara happens to be the one impacted the most. When he wakes up and realizes all the people surrounding him care about him and love him, it shocks him. He lived the majority of his life as a monster lacking any type of love and affection, and this one moment completely shifted his perspective of how he's regarded by other people around him. Not only did his death shift his perspective, but it also impacted the world. One of the 9-tailed beasts was under the Akatsuki's control, fully putting their plan into motion. Gaara's death didn't lose its impact after resurrection because it hit on all 3 of these components. Now, as far as a death that did not hit at all, it's gotta be Neji. And I'm not saying this because he was one of my favorite characters. No. I'm saying it because his death was completely unnecessary in the grand scheme of things. He was just used as an addition to the death counter in the war and had no significance. Everyone forgot about it like 10 minutes later and moved on with their lives. Not to mention he was right about destiny and how Naruto was destined to be great, but we never got a chance to talk about that or go deeper with that. Nope, his character was irrelevant for like 95% of Shippuden until they said, oh, we need a character to kill. How about Neji? One word I could use to describe Neji's death is pointless. Fuck it, keep going. Bet. Full, stupid, uninspiring. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, drop a comment down below. I love y'all. I'm out. Peace. Negligible, trivial, frivolous, unimportant.